everybody.
Hey, everybody, and Summer.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Summer and Cynthia show.
Yes.
Cynthia, how are you today, darling?
Hey, I'm doing great. And if you happen to hear some spooky whistling going on, it is the wind that's coming in through our windows, swirling around in the courtyard of our building here in Chicago, 26 miles an hour. It's flying.
Hence why it's called the Windy City.
That's why. Woo! So yeah, it is a wear layers and make sure you got a hat on kind of day. And I guess when we have weather like this, wearing a mask isn't such a bad thing.
Remember, wear those face coverings, people.
What we're realizing, folks, is that you and I, you guys still don't really know who Summer and I are. So we kind of figure we'll just keep riffing through weird questions, I'll call them, because I've never asked some of these questions of friends who I've known a long time. So what are we going to talk about today, Summer?
Well, it's a round that I like to call getting to know you. And as you mentioned, these are questions that you probably don't even ask the people you talk to on a regular. We just take for granted that with time comes depth of knowing someone. So we will continue to rotate these types of questions in future episodes, again, in an attempt to get to know each other a little better. And feel free, you guys, if you want to answer any of these questions, leave an answer in the comments below. All right.
Well, and the caveat, just so everybody understands, is that Summer and I really don't know each other. We know each other as podcasters through a networking group, and that's it. So she's in Dallas, I'm in Chicago. We have never met. We've never attended a conference. We never sat in the conference hotel swilling booze until 2 a.m.
Not yet, at least.
But that's the hope that gets us through each and every day of lockdown.
And that's what makes this entire show a cool experiment. Getting closer and closer to someone that you have not met in person. So with that, let's kick things off and ask a few questions. First up to bat, Cynthia.
Yes.
When was the last time you learned something new? And I am going to say, not including this project here.
Wow, learning something new. Oh, well, this fall I was fortunate enough to be given some red curry squash. Red curry squash is smaller than a pumpkin. It's a brighter orange. It's a reddish orange. And I had received one last year and really didn't totally know what to do with it, didn't have the right tools to make the most of it. So this year I got some red curry squashes and I thought, wow, this is a chance for me to use a food processor. And so I bought it. I'm happy with it. All the pieces go in the dishwasher, and I have been baking up a storm with a lot more confidence that what I'm doing makes a lot of sense, because, puree, there's probably good puree, and then there's puree that wasn't quite pureed enough. So that's what I'm learning. Cooking.
Baking. Why? Where did the name come from?
Red curry. It's REDKURI. So it has nothing to do with curry, the
Indian dish. Spice. Yeah. Okay. And then what's your favorite thing to make with it so far?
So far, I have done basically a pumpkin pie recipe with red curry substituted as the pumpkin puree. And then I made some breads, but the breads were a little on the dry side. So I'll have to keep hunting around for a better recipe. Basically, everything you shouldn't be eating if you don't get any exercise. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the good stuff. Treat yourself, people. It's okay. No judgment during these times.
I'll turn it back to you. What have you learned lately?
I am still learning this, and that is the world of themed entertainment. I have been introduced into this industry a few months back, like May, June, to be a little more precise. And it is a world that I just never really considered. Yes, growing up, I went to theme parks occasionally, and even as an adult, I enjoy museums and all that, but I never really thought about working in that space, and particularly developing types of attractions that people can come and enjoy and find some escapism in. And even though the industry, I picked a hell of a time to join the industry, because obviously leisure and hospitality are really taking a hit right now globally. There's a lot of promise. It will never go away, because again, we're going to always need things to entertain us, make us happy, and generate those fond memories that last forever. But that is the newest thing. And so specifically, I've been working in the realm of theme park, and these are volunteer apprentice types of roles, if you will, and just learning how to build them, from the storylines to, the experience. And it's been a very a worldly experience in terms of just how impactful these projects are. And I've met some really, really interesting and creative minds, and it's just so cool to be around. We call ourselves creatives, and we are creatives, but it's been interesting in terms of like sitting in a room, if you will, full of just pure creatives. That has been a journey, because we can go down rabbit holes and squirrel moments, and it's just been a joy. So that is the something new that I am constantly learning and enjoying. So yeah.
I have to think that this is while it might seem like a fallow time for that entire industry, it on the other hand is one of great change. This is their opportunity to really retool everything, and also recognize that whatever the first stage out where they're able to open, the world is going to be a very different place. So very
Absolutely.
cool. Cool.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part, is there it has essentially been turned upside down. And so there's going to have to be a lot of rethinking how we going forward. So it's an exciting time to also be involved in just what that looks like, the road ahead. So yeah,
Cool. Excellent. Good for you.
thank you. And you guys, what's something new you guys are up to? Feel free
Yeah.
to comment or email.
And getting adjusted to the latest update of your Windows or your iOS software or whatever, that does not count. That is everybody's cross to bear right now.
Or learning Zoom.
We're going begrudgingly into the future. We just want a little stability.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, next up, Cynthia. What gets you excited about life?
Making a difference in the lives of others, as corny as that sounds. And it has pretty much been a continuous thread through my life, through my job choices, through my civic engagement. My favorite job of all time, the one that I felt most fulfilled, here comes that wind, is for 5 years, I worked at a hospital in Minnesota doing public relations and marketing. And, a hospital is, in a sense, its own little city. There's so many different services and ancillary services that need to happen as we bring in people who are in tremendous need. I mean, we just have to recognize that families and patients were they were just they were why we were all there. And so every single day, regardless of the challenge and things that went on inside and outside of the hospital, I always found a reward at the end of the day for some of the hardest days I've ever worked in my life.
Mm. How did you, working in a hospital, I assume, would come with challenges, especially mentally? It's a space where, yes, you're going to get checked up, and there's even some proactive measures in terms of health. But how did you, just if there were signs of, I don't know, just, I don't want to say negative, but it's not always beautiful.
Well, I as an administrative person did not have to go often into clinical areas. And what I was more focused on was the experience that every family had or every patient had, and sometimes was called in to mediate
Mhm.
some of that, or go the extra mile of customer service to ensure, for instance, absentee ballot voting. Oh my gosh, on election day for all of those years, I was chasing around helping administer a voting process for those who were inpatients who wanted to make sure they could vote.
Wow.
Walking into a room, you kind of become a little spiritual, because you don't know what you're going to encounter or who this person is, and so it's all about them, it's not about you. And in even walking through the hallways, and this is just something that absolutely changed me. Walking through the hallways, I learned to look every person in the eye, whether they were an employee or a vendor, you know, somebody coming by with a pharmaceutical badge on, or a patient or families. I looked them in the eye. I tried to smile as best I could, or give some sort of a consolation. I mean, if they were crying or looked like they'd been crying, I'm not going to smile. But it's amazing what eye to eye contact does for the human spirit.
Absolutely. It's a sense of validation that I see you.
Yeah.
That's
You, what what makes you tick?
what gets me excited about life is I'm hesitating because I was gonna say again, not to be cheesy, but it's not even about being cheesy. It really is something to the simple things, and it's the infinite possibilities that life holds if you really allow yourself to be open. And I think this year for me has been pivotal in terms of allowing myself to relax and let go as someone who generally likes structure and more importantly control over aspects of my life, you know, clearly we can't do that right now. And so relaxing and submitting to the fact that things will work out the way that they're supposed to. And if you believe in law of attraction and divine intervention, um, it's really just basking in the possibilities are limitless, you know? And so without trying to have my continuous laundry list of what all I want in life, it's as simple as just allowing myself to receive. You know, I've put a lot of work in building a foundation to get to this point, I'd hope, and definitely not in vain. So just relaxing and seeing kind of where the chips fall. It is where I am right now. And that gets me excited every day of just it's a possibility to go many places every day you wake up.
That's pretty cool. I mean, just we have tremendous tools before us, and everyone's attention span is different.
Yeah.
Many people are open and more receptive to risk taking because they recognize that this is such a time of change, that with change becomes the opportunity to bring something new out of this chaos, out of this time of such depression. And I mean that as a small d depression, although we certainly recognize that the economy is going to change too. So what a perfect time to be experimenting and following your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it brings that positivity into all this chaos. And don't get me wrong, there are many moments of me being scared, depressed, unsure, but again, just relying on my faith and just that things will work out. They always seem to do. After the storm comes the sunshine and hope. And so, you know, just allowing yourself to feel all the feels, but also standing still and allowing nature to take its course, so to speak. So yeah.
So yeah, you got another question for me?
I think I do. This is a good and interesting question, and
Bring it.
I cannot wait to hear your response to this. Do you think crying is a sign of weakness or strength?
Um, I I don't think of it that way. I think of it as a breaking point. Oh, here comes the wind. I think of it as a breaking point, and a point of growth. It's a little bit like its own sort of spiritual storm or a mental storm where you have held things together for so long and the dam needs to break. I think
Mm,
about how when I was delivering the eulogy from my mother, and I knew, even though her death did not come as a surprise, and it was a relatively small group and I knew everybody in it and everything, I still knew I was gonna start breaking up. And I it wasn't that I didn't want to cry, or that I was somehow ashamed to cry. I just wanted to get through this speech. I
sure.
wanted it to all make sense, and for not.
Yeah.
So I did a few things as a public speaker so that I could just sort of manage my thoughts all the way through. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer that puts it in either this or that. This is definitely a gray area for me, where having lived as many years as I have, and as many challenges, and seeing people through their hardest healthcare years,
Yeah.
it's more of a, I guess it's more of a spiritual or a mental gift of sorts that the body has created, so that when you can't handle anymore, there is a release, and the
Yes.
and the body responds to that.
I agree. I agree. And I also share the same sentiments with the question. It's not an either or, because both are necessary in terms of, if you're talking about it from a weakness standpoint, there is power in being vulnerable in that moment and allowing yourself to feel all the emotions that come in that particular situation, uh, whether it's sadness, or I cry a lot of times when I'm angry. And a lot of that is frustration because I probably physically or even verbally can't react the way that I do. So for me, crying helps because it's a release of the tension. And in terms of seeing it also as strength, is again surrendering to the power of that emotion and allowing yourself to feel. So yeah, very much like you said, it's not an either or type of situation. It is both weakness, which again is really vulnerability, and strength in terms of just surrendering and allowing yourself to be sad or to be just totally overwhelmed with a certain situation and circumstance, that you allow yourself to release. And if that's in the form of tears, then by all means cry. And I also spoke at my father's funeral. And it was interesting because of, similar to you, I was like, I didn't want to break down. I just want to do him proud and share my memories and thoughts about him. And in that moment, I was able to rise to the occasion. And again, I think it was also a spiritual moment of just helping you do what you needed to do in that moment. And I was able to get through without breaking down in that precise moment. But either way, it's totally understandable if I did. So yeah, it's not a strength or a weak type of situation. It's just allowing yourself to feel whatever you feel in that moment.
And just a, kind of a professional, anybody watching at home having to recognize that they at some point might have to give a speech where they're going to get emotional. Figure in your gaps, figure in the parts where you're reading through, you're delivering an emotional moment, and then literally put in the word pause and leave yourself some white space,
Ooh,
or
yeah.
leave it at the end of a page so that you have to then shift your thinking, turn your page, collect yourself, and then go on to the next thought.
Yeah. And I do remember in that moment, while I didn't have the actual words of pausing, I did take a moment to just be in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's everyone understands.
Yes. Yes.
And so there's no judgment at all. It's all in your head. But yeah, I would, if it felt a little overwhelming, just pause for a beat and take it, and then carry on and do what I do. But no, so interesting that we both have that same experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
learning stuff that's new.
I tell you, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, California, we've lived lives and we're just really kind of identifying some of the things that we've done that might prove interesting or valuable, but it makes us all realize that we've lived lives and will continue to be part of this ever-changing, crazy America that we all want to have come together.
Exactly.
All
And
right.
even though there's some differences, clearly there's a lot more we have in common.
That's the essence of the Summer and Cynthia show, wouldn't you say?
You didn't think I'd get through an episode without a little groove.
I expect nothing less. If this is fun, if this makes you feel like your breakfast isn't so boring, go ahead, subscribe to us. Shoot us a note, Summer and Cynthia show, Gmail.
Do it.
Find us, love us, send us notes, comments. We're all ears. This
We
is part of
are.
our doing a new thing.
And we thank you so much for
All right.
spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.